Okay, I don't know why the light's on there. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now we're talking about the stock market crash. So it's kind of fitting that, the 1920s, we've got the Treaty of Versailles, which happens in 1919, and then the stock market crash happens at the end of 1929. So the Roaring Twenties really was a decade which can be considered wrapped up. The 1920s, October 29th, 1929, there is the stock market crash. It's called Black Tuesday. It is a horrific event. Basically, it's more for the states that the stock market crash affects them immediately. Canada, it takes a little while. So let's take a look. First, in order to figure things out, you have to know what the basic idea of the business cycle is. Okay, why can I not move this? Okay, I'm just going to move this up. Maybe that'll get rid of it. Okay, so take a look at the, there we go. Take a look at the second sheet that I gave you, the handout there. Foundations in the business cycle. So as I said, I'm not going to go into it on a detailed basis. That is why you have this second sheet here, Foundations of the Business Cycle. But the business cycle follows the same basic pattern. You have prosperity right up here at the top. Down at the bottom, you have the depression. In between, you've got inflation, recession, the trough, and recovery. So the basic idea is prosperity, everybody's happy. Everything's working good. Financially, things are stable. People are working. People have money to buy things. Then you get it into inflation. Things are good. People are working. They're buying things. I'm able to start charging more money because I have supply that you're demanding in order to keep making your product. So I'm going to start raising my prices a little, and I'm going to raise them a little bit more. And I'm going to see how far I can raise them before you start saying, well, I can't afford that at that price anymore. That is inflation, raising the prices of the basic goods. When that happens, everything around it starts to raise. So the prices of the core goods starts the raising. Eventually, everything has to raise in order to catch up with it. After that, see, where is it here? You get to the recession stage. That's number 2 on your page. Companies are faced with large inventories and lower profits because now the companies where they're getting the stuff for the raw materials in order to start things. Again, folks, this is all on the page. You don't need to be writing it down word for word. They're lower profits and they start to reduce things in order to make sure that their profits stay at peak performance. That leads to the depression. Because they're reducing things, one of the first things that they do, we've got lots of supply in here. We've got lots of stock. We don't need people building these things anymore. So I'm going to lay a few people off. I'm going to save a couple of bucks that way. I can't lay off the machinery. Therefore, the easiest thing to do is to lay off the workers. People lose their jobs. There's too much product sitting around, not enough people to buy it. People are losing their jobs. They start to say, uh-oh, I'm not working anymore, so I'm not buying something. Instead of buying 4 loaves of bread, I'm only going to buy 2 loaves of bread and we're going to make it last. Instead of buying that brand new car, I'm going to wait for a while. Well, now that new car is sitting on the lot for a little bit longer. Instead of buying the new fridge, I'm going to wait for a while because I don't have a job. I can't afford it. So that fridge stays in stock. This leads to things really starting to bottom out. That is the depression. Okay, we get into the next part, which is, where is the trough here? So the trough is basically where people start saying, due to declining sales, and there's a lot of workers out there looking for work, businesses can't raise their prices anymore, and they start to lower things. They start to say, okay, you know what, maybe we were a little greedy. We're going to give a sale. Walmart starts introducing their rollback prices or sale programs. Come on in and buy a car and we won't make you pay until 2023 or something like that. We're getting the product out the door. We're making that a little bit of a sale. We're doing something, and we're getting the economy moving again. We're dropping the prices a little bit. When that happens, the stock starts to fall apart or starts to disappear from the warehouses. People need to start building these things again because, hey, all of a sudden we're moving fridges, we're moving cars, we're moving the bread. We need somebody to start making this stuff again. So what do? You start to hire people back. That's where you get into recovery. Once recovery is in motion, this is good. I've got a good job. I'm able to do things again. Hey, you know what? It was great when we were able to afford the four loaves of bread or get that new fridge, get that new car. So you go out there and you start buying things because life looks good again. I've got money. I've got employment. Recovery leads to prosperity because, hey, everybody is starting to work now. People are working, jobs are good, people are buying things because jobs are good. And it's just this cycle. It just keeps going on and on and on. And this type of recession, depression, prosperity loop is something that happens on a regular basis. The thing with 1929 was it was the first time that stocks were really involved. I'm not going to get into the stock market. That is a whole different ball of wax. But I think we kind of got into it a little bit when you guys were playing the stock market game. You were taking a look and figuring out how to buy things. You were buying things on margin. When you're buying things on margin, what are you doing? Dante.
You're borrowing money to pay off your expenses.
You're borrowing money in order to buy these things, right? So you're saying this company is going to be doing well. I'm going to borrow a couple of bucks so that I can buy into that company, which is great as long as that company is making money and you've got money to pay it off. Okay, BJ?
Buying on margin is kind of like
buying on credit cards, yeah. So the same basic idea. It's great as long as you've got the financial backing to keep paying it off, but as soon as that stops, you're in trouble. Emma.
Okay, so why didn't the depression hit earlier? Because they had the Treaty of Versailles, and like everything was booming. They got back to the war, they started spending money. Like why didn't it hit earlier? Like during the Spanish flu area, because like didn't now like this last big stock market crash was in March, and that was because of the coronavirus because it like stopped. It dropped because of the COVID.
Okay, there was a small dip around the Spanish flu time, but it wasn't a huge crash. It was a dip. Okay, but the industry was still going. War is a great time to make profit, and when war is going on, companies are pumping out things, and because companies are pumping out things, people need to work, and that is one of the reasons why we get out of the Great Depression is because of World War II. World War II doesn't happen. We don't get out of the Depression in 1945. Reason we get out is because governments are saying we need this stuff, and they start buying the things, and when they're buying the things, the companies start working. Okay, I understand where you're going with that. We're going to get into it. Okay. So prior to 1929, there were some disturbing economic trends that are happening. You know, it's warning that Canada is going to hit a financial downturn. Wheat is declining, newsprint is dropping, and we're getting an oversupply of most major products that we export. Canada, do we make a lot of stuff here? No. What do we do with everything? We build. We grow the stuff, we harvest it, and then we ship it other places to be made into something useful. We make the steel, and then we ship it to the States in order to make the cars. We grow the wheat, then we ship it to other places in order to make the bread. We pump the oil, then we ship it to the States to refine it. Why don't we actually do that stuff in here? Who knows? We don't have the industry, we don't have the things set up. Is it going to be okay, or are you going to go off on something on Italy or something?
Well, actually, yes, we ship off like wheat. We ship it off to Italy. They make pasta, and then they ship pasta back.
Yeah, okay. But we're not getting into that part, right? Okay, but in 1929, you know, one of the major reasons why things are starting to happen is first one here, declining wheat sales. So we talked about this when we were talking about the 1920s. Where is it that our farmers are shipping a lot of their supplies to, a lot of their excesses? Kian,
Will this be on like the test,
yes,
like a big part of the test?
it's going to be a chunk of the test, yeah. Where is it that we're shipping our wheat? We're not just using it here. Our farmers are producing much more than we're able to handle here. Dante actually kind of hit part of it. We're shipping it off to Italy. Yep.
Well, like we ship it off to countries and then they use it to make something.
Right. But in this case, they weren't just shipping it back. They were taking it and they were using it themselves. Think of not just the wheat, but all of our agriculture. Where are we shipping it? We're shipping it to Europe. Remember when we were taking a look at the pictures of the trenches and the battlefields? That was farmland. It takes a good 10 years, a decade or so, for these farms to become vibrant again, for these farms to actually be able to produce stuff. Yep.
Like the farmland after the war.
Farmland after the war. So the farmers, they're not able to grow things. What? We got a lot of materials, we got a lot of field. We're shipping it off to Europe at great prices. We're making a bank on this. We're making a fortune. Then, 1929 or so, the farmers' fields, they're back in production. They don't need as much. Our farmers are still pumping it out. This is what they've been doing for 10 years. Somebody will buy it. But no, it just sits. And that's kind of the first indication that something is not right. So, Black Tuesday, October 29th, 1929, the stock market, am I jumping here? I just want to make sure. Nope, that's pretty much it. So, Black Tuesday, 1929, end of post-war prosperity. Stock markets shares decreased by about $30 billion and thousands of people lost their life savings. How did this happen? Started off pretty much one newspaper wrote an article saying, we don't trust this thing that's going on with this investment house. Well, big banker is hearing this and reading this in the Globe and Mail, and we're going to watch a small video which is going to get into this a little bit more. They're reading this stuff and they're saying, maybe it's time I start pulling out. This has been going on too long. It's been too good. I'm not trusting it. I'm going to start pulling my money out. So BJ, being the financial genius he is, starts to withdraw his money from the stock exchange. Well, Alex and a team and Kian, who are all financial guys themselves, but not in BJ's league, they start looking and going, whoa, wait a minute, BJ's pulling his money out of the stock exchange. What does he know that we don't? So we're going to start pulling some of our money out. Now, Caleb and Emma and Tess, they're sitting there going, BJ's pulling his money out. Now all of a sudden this smaller group is pulling their money out. Something's happening. My life savings is built into this. I better get whatever I can get. So because one person starts pulling their money out, the next people start to panic, and then the next people really start to panic, and that causes mass chaos. Again, we'll get into this a little bit more with video we're going to watch in a few minutes. There were stories of ruined bankers and investors jumping from the skyscrapers. They were worried about the media coverage would worsen the impact of the crash, so a lot of people started to halt, tried to get trading to halt. Did investors jump out of the skyscrapers and stuff? Probably. I mean, not only did you lose all of your money, you lost your money for your kids, you lost your friends and family's money, you lost your boss's money, you lost everybody else's money. How do you face these people? Knowing you will wipe them out, you have made them destitute. All because when you were buying on margin, you were buying with money you actually didn't have. That's part of the problem, is that it was all made. Why was the stock market going so well? Because it was going well. So people were using money they didn't have to keep boosting it. They were using this money that they were getting boosted with to fuel more boosting. It's kind of like going back to the Kardashians. Why are they famous? Because they're famous. It's the only reason. Yep.
So after margin crash, so then they didn't have any more points to pay off.
They didn't have any money to pay off the debts that they owed.
Oh, so that's why.
Kian?
Banks and like companies and stuff, don't they use those stocks to like give, like lend money, like loans and stuff?
Yes.
Like that's pyramid scheme kind of thing?
Pretty much it is like a pyramid scheme. And that's the idea behind the margin, is that you're using money that you don't have to buy more stock. And when that happens, as soon as something starts to fall down, the first guy who's getting hit, he's saying, well, I actually don't have any money. So how is the banks going to get money back from them? Well, they can't. And then when that happens, and it happens to enough people, then the banks start to come into their problems because they don't have the money that they've been promising other people to pay them off. Yep.
Like with banks like that time, and even now, like you'll like, I don't know, put like $400,000 in the bank. Let's just see for that. And like a couple days later, you're like, oh yeah, I want to take that money back, and they're like, well, we didn't actually have the money because we loaned it to someone else.
Yeah.
And like when we're counting on them not to pay it back, so we can interest.
Yep.
On their initial payment.
So yeah, that's kind of like It's a Wonderful Life. Anybody watched It's a Wonderful Life in here? Christmas movie, classic movie, yeah. Okay, so people are fearful about their future. They're reluctant to spend because this mini crash is happening. Okay, big crash hasn't really happened yet, but the mini crash is happening. It's governments and industries, they all stopped spending. They stopped investing. They stopped lending money. They're starting to get a little panic. They're starting to say, something's not right here. We're holding back. And when that happens, that causes more of a panic. It causes chaos. People are starting to say, oh, geez, now the government's stopping spending. Now we're losing our jobs. What's going to happen? World trade. Okay, so it's not just in the States, but trade across the world is ceasing to exist. Everywhere, people are stopping their trade. People assume, though, that it was just going to be temporary. I mean, something as big as this, we've been going on for 10 years. This has been fantastic. We have been doing fantastically with all of the spending and coming up with new products and figuring out ways to get through things. This will be over shortly. We'll be able to handle it. But it wasn't just the stock market crash that caused the depression. Stock market crash really helped to lead it, but there were other mitigating circumstances, things that happened behind the scenes that we won't get into in this one, we'll get into in the next slideshow. But things like the farmers, they overproduced on their fields. And when they overproduced, they stripped the land of the nutrients. When they stopped producing, that's when the land, just started to disintegrate, which caused even bigger problems because there was no place to start to grow the food again once things were supposed to recover. I see this picture here. The guy's, I don't know if you can see it. It says, $100 will buy this car, must have cash, lost all on the stock market. That's a pretty nice looking Rolls there. I think that's a Rolls. The Great Depression was the worst in Canadian history. Did not end until the outbreak of World War II in 1939. And that's kind of going back to Emma's point, which is, how do we get out of it? Best way is the war. Why did we not get into it in the 1918 time with the Spanish flu? Because the war was still on. Companies or the governments were still producing things. They still needed people to work. So some of the factors that contributed to the Great Depression, easy credit. We were talking about buying in installment plans when we were talking about the 1920s. Installment plans were what? One more time? Emma?
Basically like old-fashioned credit cards.
Old-fashioned credit card type idea. They moved that to the idea of buying on margin. Installment plans, I'm going to buy this stock in small little quantities. I'm going to pay it back. Not a problem. You've got good credit with us because you've been able to pay everything back so far, so we're going to give you that. We're going to put up your house as collateral. We're going to put up your car as collateral. Not a problem. Nothing can go wrong. Financial, it's only going to go up. So they put up their house and cars for collateral and that type of thing. What is collateral? Emma?
Just, take the car.
Yeah. So it's basically promising that if I don't pay you back in time, you get my house, you get my car, or whatever the case may be. This is why people are left homeless, because when the crash happens, we put up our houses as collateral when we were buying this stock. Let's see here. Shrinking demand for Canadian exports. So factories are shutting down in the States. Factories are shutting down. They don't need our steel anymore. They don't need our wood. They don't need our minerals. We ship our wood down to the States. They ship us back chairs. And that's what we're buying. Well, nobody's buying the chairs here. Nobody's downstairs down in the States buying chairs, so they don't need the wood. So it's just sitting at our dockyards. Protectionism and tariffs. So we start raising the rates on products that are coming in because there are people in Canada who are making chairs. So why don't we make sure that we're getting them to produce it? So we're introducing tariffs and we're introducing protectionism, saying we're only going to trade with the people that we trust. And the people that we trust, we're going to give them tax breaks and we're going to give them trade breaks, saying if you're shipping it from Italy, who we don't trust right now, you're going to pay 10% on anything that's coming in. If you're shipping it from England, well, because you're part of the Commonwealth, we're going to charge you 3%. If you're shipping it from the States, we're good with the States. You're not part of the colonial empire, so it's not going to be 3. It's not going to be as much as we're charging Italy, but 5. We'll do a 5%. That way, we're kind of keeping everything equal. Companies and consumers have borrowed heavily to pay for high-priced items. Farm equipment. Hey, this is great. We've got tractors, which will do the work of 5 cows or 5 plows and everything else. Now they're not buying these things. Now they're going into default. They can't afford them anymore. Cars. And lack of financial regulations. So up until this point, the financial regulations in the States were kind of a joke. Anybody could loan anybody money, and there was nobody behind saying or making sure that it was legal. Not quite the same in Canada. In Canada, we did have, that'll be the next slide after this. Canada did have financial regulations going on, but it was still a problem. After World War I, easy credit, that's where we're going with this. So after World War I, the companies in America and North America and Europe needed money to convert to peacetime production. So remember I said Vijay is the big money guy, he is the brains. So the companies are going to Vijay and saying, how about, anybody here watch Shark Tank? Oh, most hands are going up, that's good. So they're going up to these guys and saying, hey, we need money to keep us going. So why don't we make a deal? And they go up to Kevin O'Leary and they say, okay, so for $200,000, you can get a 10% stake in our company. And, Vijay being Kevin O'Leary over here, he goes, that sounds nice, but what guarantees do I have? Tell you what, I'm going to take a percentage of what you guys are making up until you hit this point, and then after that, then we'll be equal partners, from then on, and I'll just take the 10%. But until then, I'm going to get a percentage of your points. Yep.
Don't they usually do that so they make their money back?
Yes, until they make their money back, and then after that, it's everything else is gravy.
And then everything else is what?
Gravy. Everything else is bonus. Yes, just a phrase. So Vijay is making $1.02 for every dollar that he's putting into these things. Not huge money, but when you're talking over thousands of dollars worth of stock, it starts to add up. Well, like I said, okay, now we got Kian and Hatim and Alex, they're a company over here, and they say, wow, Vijay's making money over here. We want in on this. So they try to buy some of the stock. They offer Vijay $1.05 because the value is going up. Well, now Vijay is going, okay, I'm going to get $1.02 if I'm staying in the company. I'm going to get $1.05 if I leave the company. I'm making more money, so I'm out of here. Raises the stock up even more. These three, they start to sell their thousands of shares off to the small people. The small people are paying $1.07, making these guys money. It's all part of that pyramid scheme that Kian was talking about earlier. it's not really a pyramid scheme, but it kind of works that way where there's no actual value trading here. There's no actual products. It's just how much you think this company is worth. VJ bought it at $1.02. This little corporation over here is buying it at $1.05. Everybody else is starting to buy it at $1.07, $1.08, $1.10. This is raising the value of the company. Yes.
I know how some people, like, people who work in stocks, they get like money for like the stocks and that.
Yep.
Was that the same way in the 1920s? They get
Yeah.
money? Okay, so just making sure I was correct. The people who like worked in the stocks were making huge money. Okay.
Yeah.
Because like my stepfather, he is in, what is he? Something in stock wealth management or something like that. And I remember when COVID hit, he was like suggesting people just leave it, and no, people were like getting other stocks and then buying stocks and taking out and buying.
Yeah.
Kind of like during the COVID thing, and people just wouldn't listen. It was really funny. He's like, "No, leave it. It's gonna recover. Sell it. You're gonna just have to buy it more." And they're like, "Nope, I'm getting my money out before it goes down." Then.
Okay. Now this is good because this is kind of where we're going with it. When the stock market crashes, people are getting panicked. They're grabbing their money and they're saying, "We're out of here." So the value of that stock that was at $1.20, it started off with VJ at $1.02. These guys, this consortium, bought it at $1.05. You guys are buying it at $1.06, 8, 10, 20. Now you're saying, I want my money. I'm getting out of here. I bought it at, whatever, $1.20. I got to get whatever I can because all my money is invested in this. I'm going to take a little bit of a loss, but I'm getting out at $1.10. Okay, I'm losing a few bucks, but I'm not losing tons. You start to sell. Well, now everybody else is starting to sell because you're selling. Well, why is it that she's selling? Well, then that just kind of drops the stock back down again to almost nothing.
But you shouldn't sell when it's dropping. It's gonna like go back up again.
As long as you've got the money to cover it.
As long as you have the money to cover
Yeah.
it, but like when the whole stock market hit with COVID and it was they dropped, people were selling it when they shouldn't have sold it.
Right.
And
But they were panicking, right?
they were panicking because they thought it was gonna even go lower, even though it wasn't all the pattern.
Right. But that default stuff, that only comes in because of the stock market crash. Up until then, the governments didn't step in to regulate that type of thing. It's after the stock market crash in 1929 that the governments step in to regulate.
Wasn't there like a shutdown of the stock market?
Yep.
They shut it down.
They shut it down at certain points. Yeah.
They shut it down recently.
Yeah. Okay, Kian?
If you have like money in a bank, like a savings account or something, a bank goes like bankrupt, doesn't have any money, do you like Willy Wonka style like take over? Or
No.
you just lose your money?
You just lose your money.
Not 100% Canada will come up to $100,000.
Well, it'll cover up to $100,000, but that's great. I got $2 million in there.
True.
I'm only getting $100,000. That's not a whole lot.
There's actually a guy who owned 50% of Apple and he sold it for $400 back in.
Yeah.
Which now is worth like I think.
Oh, yeah. People sell. Yeah, that's part of the idea of the speculation. I'm speculating, and the definition of speculation is I'm going to guess. I'm going to try to rub the crystal ball and say, this company is going to make me money. This company is about to lose me money, so I'm going to sell. That's the whole idea behind speculation. So as long as things were going up, and investors would be able, so we're going back up here. Investors would borrow money to purchase more shares. So it's at $1.20. Things are only going up. I'm going to borrow money from the banks. I'm going to borrow money from people in order to say, I want to get more of this. I'm going to get more of this. And as long as the stocks are going up, this is great. I've got money to pay them back. This is part of the pyramid scheme idea. As long as things are going up, you've got money to drop down on the people below you. But when things start to fall down, that's when everything goes crazy. When the share prices decreased, lenders demanded repayment of their loan. Hey, things are going down now. How do I know you're good for the money? I want some of mine back. Give me back my money. Well, I don't have your money. Well, what do you mean you don't have my money? Well, I borrowed it so that I can make money on the stock. The stock's not doing as well as I thought it was, and I don't have the money right now. Okay, well, we're just going to take your car, or we're going to take your house, or whatever. This is when people start to panic because Kian lost his house, which makes Hatim and Alex say, well, I'm not going the same way Kian went. I'm selling my stock now before I lose my house at a lower profit. least I'm getting 70 cents on the dollar. At least I'm getting 60 cents on the dollar. At least I'm getting 50 cents on the dollar. Still making 50 cents. I'm not bottoming out and getting nothing and losing my house in the process. So this is when the stock market crash happened. So we can see it here. 1927, you got the slow peaks and valleys where it's dropping here and there, going up, up, up. It reaches a top point here in 1929, and then it drops one day. Boom. Doesn't drop all the way down. It's the start of the collapse. And when this collapse happens, some of the bankers, led by people like JP Morgan, they step in and say, we can't let this happen. We're going to pump our own money in and we're going to save the stock market. This is the only way that we're going to make money is, we'll pump our money in so that we can keep things stable. They pump their money in. It lasts for a week or two. Stock prices start to raise up again. People are starting to make money. And then JP Morgan and the Kevin O'Learys of the day and the BJs of the day, they say, all right, everything's good. We're taking our money back out. And then you see it's just a steady decline from there. Down to 1932, where it hits a bottom, where people, quite frankly, didn't know if it was ever going to recover again. And until World War II starts, it never really does. You can see the valley that happens here, market low, and then it never even comes back up to where it was in 1927. We're looking at 1934. Yes.
So like, let's say you have like stocks in a company, and then you're like, yeah, I want my money right now. They don't have it, and then it like their stocks completely crash, they almost go broke. But then like 20 years from now, when they aren't broke anymore, they have money. Could you still go back and be like, hey, I want my stocks?
If you didn't pull out, then
Yeah, if you didn't pull out, then you'd be fine. Yeah. But people, like what Emma was saying, the big wigs, the JP Morgans, the Kevin O'Learys of the day, they're sitting there going, don't be stupid, don't be selling everything. But if you are going to be stupid and sell everything, sell it to me. I got the cash. I can weather this storm. I can hold off while everything is happening. And they're buying huge factories. They're buying chunks of land. They're buying everything that they can get their hands on. And it's going to take 5, 6, 8 years, but they've got the money to back themselves up. They're going to become incredibly wealthy. The Kennedys, that's how they make their fortune. Everybody knows the Kennedys, John F. Kennedy. Yep. We'll get into that when we get into later on into the 60s and stuff. But this is how a lot of these guys are making their money. Okay. So stock brokerages lent money to investors for stock. Individuals suddenly had no money to pay for this, and their investments were worthless. They were just kind of standing there going, oh, geez, now what do I do? The crash drove many brokerages into bankruptcy. So that's when, Kean is talking about the bank is going under, and I've got all my money in that bank. Well, guess what? They've lent it out. They've lent your money out to 7,500 people. Well, those 7,500 people aren't paying back. So when that bank closes, your money's gone too. Is it fair? No. But this is what causes things like runs on banks. Because people are running to the bank saying, I want to get all my money out now before my bank closes. This is why we've got federal regulations in Canada now to try to prevent this type of thing from happening. But at the time, anybody, again, It's a Wonderful Life, that scene where there's the run on the bank and people are running in there going, I want my money. Well, old man Potter's giving you 50 cents on the dollar. 50 cents is better than what I'm getting here, which is nothing. So I'm going to take my money, from them. So people are, doing whatever they can in order to get whatever cash they can. So wiped out reserves, hundreds of banks start folding. When the banks start folding, when the banks start collapsing, people start getting really panicked. And the chaos is just like a domino effect. It just keeps going and going and going. Canadian investors lost money on the US and Canadian stock markets. Obviously, everything is crashing in the States. It's going to send free fall throughout the rest of the world. America is the biggest corporation type industry place in the world. So if America is folding, then the rest of the countries are going to fold too. Canada's banks were better regulated. Fewer depositors lost their life savings through bank failures. But as I said, we are a country which is based on primary resources. If we have no place to ship it to, now we're in trouble. Okay, because we were so financially linked, as soon as we left Britain, we joined up with the States. We were looking for that person to kind of lead us away or lead us on our way and help us out. And Big Brother in the States, they were definitely willing to help out. Come on with us. You guys got the resources. We got the companies to make the things. We can make a beautiful partnership here. This is going to be great. But when the States falters, it sends the crash coming our way too. That's a tidal wave. Less and less order for Canadian resources and products. American parent companies would cut back or close the Canadian branches. So up until this point, places like GM, they're opening up branch plants in St. Catharines. Perfect example. Why are they opening up a branch plant in St. Catharines? Why would GM do that? Yep.
They would do it to provide jobs for kids who are not dependent on the United States, so that way they could just do it. They would take the primary resources, just bring local GM plants here, sell it out.
Okay, but GM is an American company, so why are they opening up a branch in Canada?
Would it be cheaper for shipping that?
Cheaper for shipping. That is one big part. Remember we were talking about tariffs. Never mind. Okay, you give me what you got first, and then I'll go with what I was going to say.
Me?
Yep.
Well, I was gonna say that they can like cut down on the shipping cost, but also sell at the same price for profit.
Yeah, cut down on shipping costs, sell at the same price, more profit. When things are going into the States, as you guys were both kind of saying there, shipping costs, there's also hitting the tariffs. And then when it's coming back across the border, it's hitting another tariff. If we're just shipping it right across the country into the same country, then we don't have to pay the tariff going outside of Canada and then the tariff coming back into Canada. Hey, we're saving that money. Canadians, we're working for cheaper. So why not put the Canadians to work? They're working cheaper. It's kind of like what they're doing now in Mexico and the States. They work cheaper. We make more money that way. Then you take a look at the tariffs, and we've got the Commonwealth connection. Because we are Commonwealth, the States is not. Britain is still kind of ticked off over that war of independence that they had. So they're not a part of this Commonwealth deal. We can ship our products to Britain, to any of the British colonies, Ireland, Scotland, New Zealand, Australia, India, any other British colonies, British Virgin Islands. We can ship our products to any of these places for, as I was saying, say about 3% interest, or 3% of the tariff. Whereas the States, if they're shipping their stuff, they're getting hit with a 5% tariff. Now these numbers are just kind of made up. I'm just kind of giving you examples. But 3% is better than 5% when you're coming to a tax. So if the company is an American company, but they're working from Canada, they're able to ship the stuff to the other Commonwealth countries at the 3 instead of the 5, so they're making even more money. And it's opening up their market. But as soon as the crash happens, what's the first thing you do? You shut down the branch plants. Canada, it was nice, St. Catharines, sorry about your luck, but we're shutting down. We're keeping our factories running in our own downtown area. So they start shutting down St. Catharines, the GM plant. And if everybody remembers, when GM shuts down in a place like Oakville, Oshawa, St. Catharines, it basically wipes out half of the jobs in the area, which is a big financial problem. Puts a lot of people out of work. And the snowball effect of that. I'm not working. I can't go to your store anymore. I'm not going to your store. I'm not buying your products. You go out of business. People that work at your store, They're not working, they're not going to the next business, so we get the crash going that way. Okay, so 33% of Canada's gross national income came from exports such as the mineral, newspaper, fish, wheat, lumber. 33%. That is a huge chunk. When it's just wiped right out, that's going to hit. Within 3 years of Black Tuesday, international trade dropped by 50%. Unemployment spread throughout Canada and the world. Trying to pick it up here a little bit. Okay, early in the Depression, wheat decreased. Canadians continued to grow and continue to harvest. Again, everybody thought that this was going to be over quickly. So they thought, not a problem, we will keep going. And there was huge oversupply. Sinking from 1928, $1.03 per bushel, to the same bushel in 1931, 3 years later, is only worth 29 cents. That is a crash. Farm income across Canada, 1929 was $363 million. 1931, again 3 years later, it goes from 363 million to 10.7 million. That is a crash. And for the first time in 1937, there is no wheat crop in Saskatchewan. 2/3 of the rural population, they had to ask for federal assistance. Not only do we need help, we need help. Okay, I'm not going to get into trade protectionism. Okay, I'm going to stop there. For the people who are watching this online, go to this link here. It will be in the announcements. For those of you here, we're going to be putting that on in just a second. I want that one.